So here we have an 18-foot dome with the metal glazing strips applied with the double stick tape. And what happened this winter is we had a lot of snow and ice sliding off the dome, and sometimes, unfortunately, they rip off the metal glazing strips. So that's a little bad, but we are going to show you a methodology to prevent that happening. So we have an upgrade that'll help prevent them falling off. But if they do fall off, several things can happen. This dome is taped with aircraft tape, which has a very strong glue. So when they fell off, they didn't pull off the tape. However, if you have the 87-77 tape, it may be that some of the tape might come off. So we're going to provide you with a metal glazing strip repair kit, and that will include some of the tape if you inform us that some of the tape has come off. So the first thing to do is to identify which strips went where, because in our case the strips came off and all the double stick tape stayed on the strip, while sometimes some of the double stick tape can stay on the dome and some on the strip. And in that case, you need to identify which strip goes where and mark them accordingly, because that'll save you the bother of trying to get rid of this double stick tape. So don't try and get rid of it. All we're going to do is show you how to use a special glue, which we will provide for you, that will enable them to stick right back on. So this looks like this one came off of here, like there, and then the other one, you identify the angles, and this is the center of a pentagon, and this has got a red end, you can see that, and this one goes in here. So what I would do is I would place and then make a little mark with the Sharpie on each end, so that when you're going to put the strip back, this is the impact adhesive, so it will just immediately stick, and we'll show you sticking them back on. So the next thing we'll show you is how to prep the surface and prep the double stick tape. So let's go in the shop and we'll accomplish that. Another thing that might happen is that the strip is just half hanging off. So part of the strip is attached and part is hanging off. So in that case, get a really sharp knife and cut down underneath the strip and cut through the double stick tape. Now this double stick tape is completely impregnated with glue, and so even though you might cut the tape itself, it's absolutely fine, but use a sharp knife and keep it clean. The other thing that might happen is the strips might bend, and in that case you probably have to have a new strip, but we can send you those, and we'll send you a little access to our model. You can look at the model and determine which strips we need to replace. But also you'll see later in this video a very cunning idea that we've thought of to stop the strips coming off in future. And as I said before, they usually come off on the north side with snow and ice sliding off the dome and grabbing the strips. The other thing that I wanted to tell you, the glue on the metal strips, the double stick glue is actually stronger than the 87-77. So sometimes they may come off and pull off that tape, in which case you need to replace the tape. So these are the items you'll need to replace the metal glazing strips that may have come off your dome. And the first thing is alcohol and a rag to clean the strips really, really well. The second is replacement of the 87-77 tape, and this is a flesh colored tape that's on your dome, and it's best to wait till it's really nice and warm to apply this tape, especially and also the glue as well. And then this tape, you have to be really warm to apply this tape, over 60 degrees. And this is hard to see, but this is the aircraft tape 8672, and we're going to show you applying that. And the final thing is some contact cement, which we're going to use to stick the strips back on with. So the first step is to clean the strips. So what we do to clean the strips is we get some alcohol on a rag and then give them a good clean, and that gets rid of any debris. If there's a lot of debris on the strips, it might be somewhat tricky to do this, but usually this contact cement is very forgiving, and we'll show you how that gets applied. So clean up the strips, clean up the dome where the strips are going to go to, put on new tape if you need, and then we'll show you now applying the strips to the dome itself. Okay, so we've wiped these with alcohol, and the next step is out at the dome we're gonna put the contact cement on the double stick tape and also on the dome itself, and we'll show you doing that, but I just wanted to show you the two methodologies we use. The little applicator that comes in the kit in the bottle here, or we can get a brush if there's a lot of work to be done. Basically we might use a larger quantity of the contact cement and use a brush which we would provide you in certain instances. Now the interesting thing about the contact cement is to try to get it evenly spread, not too thick and not too thin, and you'll kind of figure out what that is, but essentially it's also quite critical the amount of drying time that you have between putting the cement on and allowing it to dry enough so it just becomes tacky, not dry but not too wet. And so what I do is I end up by putting it on both surfaces, and then by the time it takes to do the next strip with the glue and the next part of the dome with the glue, at that point the first strip will probably be dry and ready to apply to the dome. So that's kind of the methodology, and you'll get used to it, and hopefully there's not too many strips to apply to. So now we'll go out to the dome and show you what happens out there. So one last thing is try not to have the metal strips in contact with each other for a length of time, because they tend to stick together, and sometimes you have to use a knife or a screwdriver to prise them apart. But try to keep them separate when you store them, or even put a little strip of plastic in between, something like that, just to keep them apart, because we have known them to stick together pretty strongly. This is pretty strong tape. So we have alcohol on the rag, and we make sure this is nice and clean. The alcohol evaporates pretty quickly, and then the next step is to apply the contact cement to the dome itself. And it's kind of an estimation. It's hard to tell where 2.5 inches is, but you do your best. And I've got the sun in my eyes, which makes it even harder. But basically this tape is 2.5 inches wide. Your tape might be 2 inches wide, and in that case you just do it to the edge of the tape. But this is really amazing cement. But the problem is you have to wait till the temperature gets above about 55. So it has to be on a warm day, and it's best to have a day when there's not a lot of wind, because this can attract dust quite readily. So this is what we're doing. We're applying the contact cement to the top of the place where the strip's going to go, and in a few moments we'll have that applied, and we'll be able to let it dry while we now work on the next strip. So that's that strip ready to dry off, and we did the strip itself a little earlier, and so now I can feel that still a little tacky, so that's perfectly ready to glue. So we want to just give this maybe a couple more minutes to dry off, and now I'm going to wipe and start preparing the next strip. So it's quite a warm and windy day, so this is drying up pretty nicely, just a slight tack, and so that's perfectly ready. So what I do is I start at one end and place one end in the position I like it, and place the other end and then press it on with my hands, and then get a roller and roll it on as much as you can. We're looking at 15 pounds of pressure in terms of rolling, and so that strip is now installed back on. It takes about 24 hours for the glue to harden up. But here's the key. Now this is the 1-inch tape we're going to use to secure the metal strip, and what I'm going to do is show how we apply this. And again, we want to clean both surfaces, and the aircraft tape is going to go on the top edge, and it's going to overlap by 1/2 inch on each side. Now the tricky part of this tape actually is separating the end of the tape from its backing, which is a clear backing. Okay, now you have to have a pair of scissors to cut this tape. You're not going to be able to tear it. And so when you cut the tape, cut the backing at a different location from the tape. If you look at this, you see the backing's left a little longer than the tape. Then that makes it easy to pull off the next piece of tape. So what I do is I pull it, and then I do a little fold so it doesn't spring back, because it easily springs back, especially if it's windy. So now we're going to start at this end and put the tape, and what I usually do is have the tape going onto the metal by about 1/4 inch onto the metal, and then I stretch it out here and try and get that distance 1/4 inch onto the metal, because that's plenty of thickness size. So 1/4 inch on the metal like that, and keep going all the way. Try and keep that distance constant, and then when you get to the corner, obviously we're going to cut the tape here. So that's how to apply the tape. I'm just going to put it up there for now, and now I'll show you rolling the tape. And so essentially this is the most important piece, is rolling the tape. And remember that you must do this above 55 degrees. This tape will not adhere properly below 55 degrees. So if the strips came off in the winter, you're going to have to wait till a nice warm spring day to put them back on. So now this strip is held by 2 methods. One is the contact cement, and the other is the aircraft tape, and any snow will just slide right over the top. So that's our solution for your metal strips that might fall off.